Okay, maybe it's when I don't record it doesn't. Well, that makes sense. Don't mock me. My whole world, I swear, all my people are cleaning up after me all the time. Like, she is a mess. Where's the screen share? Where'd it go? There. Pop my back really quick. Get the tie. No, throw my hair.
A room full of women.
See, now I'm gonna have that other half.
There you go.
Now with your tongue. This one isn't as intense. That is the most intense of all of the parts.
Always is.
This is intense for me, but gosh,
I think it's important to understand DID. I think that's a very confusing thing for a lot of us is what is it? What does it look like? How do you know?
And what do you have to do about it?
Yeah. And what's the best response for us if, you know, someone's reacting out of one of the parts?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Do you agree?
Yeah, I have a tendency to, like if one of the ladies in the house are in their other part, I don't necessarily like talk to them like they're a 5-year-old, but I kind of just keep it nonchalant, like and distracted. Their thoughts are really, you know, like what's going on around them. Kind of just speaking in that moment, but. So it's almost like I'm not feeding into something that may or may not be a 5-year-old, but I'm not deterring somebody. So it's kind of like that. It doesn't throw the other ladies off.
Mm.
And it doesn't, you know, put them in the world.
Yeah.
It's like you're accepting them after you're meeting them where they're at.
It's working with DID is, and I will be the first to admit I have no idea. There are people that specialize in it, but everyone is so different. And then, so there's DID, and then there's DID from ritualistic abuse, which is, again, a whole other level, because we'll talk about it, but, and I'm having hot flashes, so sorry.
Like, it's so much fun.
Don't sweat right now. I'm a mess. And already a mess, and add menopause. Like, it couldn't get worse. Okay. All right.
Someday, ladies.
This is one of my graphics I'm most proud of in my life. Canva is so fun. Who else uses Canva?
We do,
Isn't it?
yeah. Yeah, it is kind of fun.
I did that.
Spend too much time on there.
I know, you can.
Well, and but
definitely.
if you don't know how to do something, all you have to do is Google, how do I? And you
Yeah.
get your 2-minute tutorial, not 30. You can
Yeah.
do 30, but you can also do the 2-minute. It's like, oh my
There's
gosh.
only one class.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I looked at that the other day. I'm like, oh. Okay.
I made this pretty, but if I were real, I'd probably just scribble it and cut it up like the napkin and and throw it in the wind. That's kind of how it
When
really
you
feels.
see it, you actually understand it a little bit.
But I use
What?
pretty colors and
Yeah.
good fonts. But
Different, yeah.
I'd stick this really in a blender, and that's more the real is my experience. Okay, I'm going to read a story which some of you have already heard, and I only went part way last time, and I'm not sure whether I did that for my anxiety or because it was the right thing. Even where's my story though? I went through all of this last night. It looks organized, and then I had this pile, and I'm like, who did that? Who actually organized this? Okay, so I said before, how many of you have watched the training that I did in January? So a few of you. So I did reference this story in there. The reason I use this story is I mentioned that DID in the world of ritualistic abuse is different. And they're purposely created parts where there's torture to such an extreme level that there's forced dissociation, forced like compartmentalizing, and then those parts are often regarded as not individuals like myself, but they are given jobs or they have to show up for a certain reason. So there's a lot of torture, there's a lot of programming. So this story incorporates a lot of that. So that's why and it's hard. You guys, of all the things, this is probably going to be the easiest for you, this section. But for me, it's so personal. It's easier to kind of go over topics and general ideas than to talk about my little parts. So this has been a hard one, just generally, and it is a little bit graphic. If you don't want to hear it, you are welcome to just walk for 5 minutes. Does anyone need that? Or stick in your earphones. I won't even see you. Put on your iPad or your music. I can't even see. I'm blind, so I won't even know. I won't feel bad. Okay. They named her Eve. So I call her Rahab from the Bible. Someone else called her Rahab. I know people say Rahab, but she's Rahab to me. So, dressed in pure, exquisite white, with a dainty crown of flowers on her head, she approached him. Every girl dreams of her wedding day, the fair princess finally united with her prince to be whisked far, far away to happily ever after. Singing and sewing birds and rodents are her companions as she readies herself. Her rose-colored lips are perfect, and her eyes are large with wonder. A veil as long as the church adorns her head. Far too heavy to carry herself, it is eagerly carried by cute little flower girls. Perhaps she will be rescued from a tall, impenetrable tower, or from an oubliette. I should change that word. It's hard for me to say. In a dark, forgotten cave. Perhaps her prince will have fought dragons and demons to find her deep within the belly of a mountain. Just before her cage falls into the endless pit of nothing, he pulls her to safety. Her shoes, will they be silver or glass? Will they dance in the clouds or hand in hand run through fields of flowers? She can hear the fabric of the dress rustling. She can feel the tool in her perfectly manicured, feminine little hands and imagines trying to stuff it into the carriage created from a gourd that is not big enough to contain it. It pushes through the windows and tickles her nose. Flowers line the cobblestone path she walks on to reach her handsome groom. Clouds part as golden rays of sunlight mark each step ahead. The castle before her, awaiting her entrance, is majestic and full of light. It glows so bright that she has to shield her eyes. Her dreams are now coming true after waiting so long for her prince. Her prince will wield the sword for her through all eternity to protect his princess from the devils and monsters that pursue. At last she will know love and safety and begin to believe that happily ever after other princesses can be hers. She can see it. She can feel it. Her preparation for this day was far from a fairy tale. The young girl sat in a bath, blood red from her torture. Numb and emotionless, she shivered uncontrollably from the trauma, and ice-cold waters meant to control her bruising. Her hair roughly pulled as the women tried to wash it and clean her up. Each touch from what appeared to be a gentle hand made her shudder and cower. Her body revolted and seized from the torture she had just endured. They were making his bride. She would be submissive, vacant, and his. This 5-year-old girl would marry the devil tonight. As in any marriage, her father gave her away. She watched his black car disappear as he drove down the road. They took her little hand in theirs, smiled a smile at her that made her want to throw up, and led her to the small greenhouse, and down the back stairs. For a moment, she wanted to believe that there was something different. Please, God, let it be for something different. But the men would assail her for the entirety of the day. You guys all right? They proceeded to take her clothes off and tied her to the table. Electricity shot through her body until she convulsed. Time and time again, they shocked her until she lost grasp on where and who she was. She was raped, tied in the doorway, and whipped. Over and over and over again, this horror repeated. They watched. Ever so closely, they watched. She cried and convulsed and screamed in terror, begging for mercy, escape, finality, death. She pleaded and promised to be good and do whatever they wanted, and they raped, beat, electrocuted, and watched. Few words were spoken by the two men, but she could hear them groan and breathe heavily as they exhausted themselves on her, either through beatings or rapings. They grew more hostile, brutally angry that it was taking so long for her little mind to break to their design. They watched and persisted, repeating the horrors for hours, and suddenly they saw it. Eve emerged. They saw her and they held her. They retained and solidified that break of her psyche. Electricity pumped for long, painfully long periods of time and held her. Quickly they summoned the women who would secure and care for this creation. They scooped her up and would bathe, dress, and deliver the bride. Is that right? Like, no, yes, no?
Well, I mean,
Yeah. Okay. Am I okay to continue? Her carriage was an old dusty Buick, and her dress was very, very easy to stuff into it. It was pretty, white and long. Her hair, now dry and combed, smelled like a nauseating mix of burnt blood, semen, and soap. She closed her eyes and clung, and during the long car ride, pretended she was beautiful and safe. Evening fell. The creaky door of the Buick ushered her emergence into the nightmare that would unfold. There was no cobblestone path lined with flowers, but dirt and demonic fire up ahead. A wreath of white and yellow flowers was her crown, and as she walked, she did not hear the swish of tool, but the clamor of drunken men. Broken, gentle, wide-eyed, young Eve stepped barefoot onto the dirt and moved in agony. Her entire body anguished from the torture of the day, but regardless, she moved forward toward what was demanded of her. A being, a masked devil, waited for her by the altar. She'd been there before, many times before. The altar before her had run red with death and carnage many times. This place was very familiar, but this anticipation was new. Eagerly, the devil awaited. He took her by the hand and led her. She could not see his eyes, though, through the mask, but his clammy, gruff hands were familiar. She had felt his fingers before. I think this is where I stopped before, but I'm trying to decide. It's so graphic. I think I can summarize. And then, so basically, and I'll just read the very tail end of it, I think, but raped, of course, forced to mutilate and kill. There were two children hanging in a tree, and basically the idea was to secure her, me, and the raping was by, I'm guessing, 50 men or more, just one after the other, just again to secure me as a victim, but also Eve, this part that they created. She's kind of the core of most of my parts, and she's taken a lot of crap for me. Like, she's held on to so many memories to this day to protect me, and and then longing, like looking for anyone that would help her, anyone, not in that environment ever, but especially when I was younger, there was still that hope that
Mhm.
someone would come, and at some
Mhm.
point that's just driven right out of you. Um, I think that might be enough. And then always looking for angels. Every time we'd see stars, when I say we, it's me and my parts. If I'm talking about DID, I can't help it. I'm so sorry. But stars were angels to us, and just begging God to send them to take us away.
Mm.
And when I have parts that heal, I imagine that like angels come and take them home, and they are relieved. So what people call integration, I don't know. I just call healing, and they're released. They're released from their work. So when something is broken, it is fragile and easier to break again and again. She tried to find the angels, and they left her in the hands of the devil, so they did not come that night. I believe it is this night she knew she was theirs forever, and God had turned away to never look back. No prince would rush in to save her tonight or ever. No nobility or magic would transform her prison into a castle. She was theirs and would be forever. I'm sorry. I know I know I probably shouldn't apologize.
No,
I-
you shouldn't.
But the reason I share that isn't just to share a graphic story,
Mhm.
but to share part of an event that is living and breathing in the women you will work with. This is not isolated to me alone. And so it's a dose of, if someone says they hurt me, it could mean so much. And just holding a space for that, and just having a touch, a glimpse into what that could mean. And the despair. I was a happy kid, I'm pretty sure. And they did what they wanted. They broke me. They broke my mind, they broke my spirit. Clearly, they didn't, it wasn't all complete, but
Right.
there was, I had parts that had been created before that had just more naturally split. This is the first one I remember them purposely creating. So when we're talking about DID, again, there's DID that occurs in abuse and trauma because the mind splits. It hits capacity and it splits, and and then there's this. It's just a whole other level. So when I was talking about, like the born identity or things like that, something like this, that kind of split and complete creation of a being, kind of, it just can't happen without a young mind. It you can we'll talk we'll talk more. Oh yeah, we're gonna breathe for a second. My friend Tanya, who did the summit with me, she said this was distracting, that I pulled everyone in with my story and then they were distracted. I'm like, I need to be distracted. So take a breath. Your little four breathing or whatever you do. Okay. I'm not going to blow it and tell you what this is. Does anyone know what this is?
Dime?
Border.
Okay, it is a coin. I'll tell you about the story. So I cycle with a bunch of guys, and there's one intersection they have found multiple Indian head coins. Like, we're talking 20 or 30 over years. So not a week, but many years. So we all kind of at every intersection look. And we were at an intersection. This was just last year, and I saw a dime, and we took off, but I hadn't picked it up. And I heard a clank, and Jim, my friend, he helped with the summit. He said there was nothing there. I'm like, I saw a dime. He said, yeah, I saw it. I picked it up, but it was so damaged you couldn't even tell it was a dime. It's like, I need that dime. That's my dime. So we finished our ride, and he actually drove back and got it for me, because I'm that dime. it's no less a dime, but you can't tell it's a dime. And a lot of times when we're working with this kind of trauma with DID, it is hard to know. We don't even feel like people. Our worth is shattered. You know, I have parts that are more animal-like than human, and but it's no less worth 10 cents than if it were shiny and new. And so I don't know. This is my self-portrait, basically. And I just like with the video, it's important to know that what we're seeing is not all there is. That there's so much worth and it looks different. There's wear, there's tear. It's probably been driven over for years, but it still has so much worth. And I dare say more because of the history. And so I know when people work with me, I can be very pleasant and I can be a beast. As nice as I am on one end, I am equally not nice on the other end. And it's hard. The people that can hold space with me, I come back pretty fast. Because if I'm like that, I'm usually in defense of myself for some reason. And if I don't have to be defensive, then it's like, oh, okay, you're safe. Okay. So we're going to just briefly review dissociative disorders because there's so much dissociation. I guarantee everyone in here has dissociated at some point today to kind of like not hear something or gotten distracted by something else. You know, we just do it. It's natural. But then it can go to the point where it's not fine. So dissociative amnesia. I just want my notes. Where are they? Everything is a musical, isn't it? Here we go. Okay. The main symptom is memory loss that is more severe than normal. Like, you know, everyone drives or, you know, walk through a store and it's like, oh crap, how did I get in this aisle? Or I don't remember driving those last 2 blocks, or I don't remember driving my driveway, or I don't remember eating that entire pie. You know, so there,
But my butt does.
Yeah. So, you know, there are just times it's just going to interject and you're not possibly even going to notice it unless someone brings your attention to it. So it's more than normal, and forgetfulness that can't be explained by a medical condition, you know, like a concussion or a tumor or something, you know. You can't recall information about yourself or events and people in your life, especially from a traumatic time. Dissociative amnesia can be specific to events in a certain time, such as intense combat, or can involve a loss of memory about yourself. It may sometimes involve travel or confused wandering away from your life. This is dissociative fugue, I don't know. An episode of amnesia usually occurs suddenly and may last minutes, hours, or rarely months and years. You know, like some people will get in an accident and they don't remember that accident. They just all of a sudden it's black and they were there, their eyes were open, but you know, and that's a chunk of time. So that's dissociative amnesia. And again, it's a protective thing. It's built in from God to help us not remember something that was super scary. Depersonalization and derealization. This involves an ongoing or episodic sense of detachment or being outside of yourself. You've heard people say, you know, I watched myself, or I felt like I was somewhere else. You know, my body was there, but I didn't feel it. Or, and observing yourself, actions, feelings from a distance, as though watching a movie. Other people and things around you may feel detached and foggy or dreamlike. You know, if you've ever had a severe sense of grief or even elation, you're just unaware. You are not connected to the world around you. and you're just, you may experience depersonalization, derealization, or both symptoms, which can be profoundly distressing, may last only a few moments, or come and go over many years. And then there's dissociative identity disorder, and this is the one. And let me just say, rarely are you going to find a good depiction of it on film. However, my kids have said the moon, what is it, that Marvel? It's on Disney.
Oh, Moon Knight.
Moon Knight.
whatever.
My kids have said that's closer to truth from what they've seen. It's a little dramatized because it is for film, but because they know me and they know my trauma and my relationship to it and my DID now. They said it's one of the closer, but it's better to talk to the talk to the source. But okay, so let's see. Dissociative identity disorder, formerly known as multiple personality disorder, and I personally would like to take the disorder part out, is characterized by switching to alternate identities. You may feel the presence of two or more people talking or living inside your head. How is this different than schizophrenia? It is in that schizophrenia is, which I'm not a master of it, schizophrenia can be medicated, and that you can hit a baseline of wellness. And it's because stories that are told of this kind of trauma are so weird and extreme, a lot of times they are misdiagnosed as schizophrenic. The schizophrenia, the paranoia, thinking people are going to kill them. Of course, that all can sound like DID, but there is just a different flavor, and a good doctor, a good psychiatrist and psychologist will spot that. And it's a little more episodic, I think. The stories aren't always as consistent. And I could be making that up, but I'm pretty sure. Let's see. Each identity may have a unique name, personal history, and characteristics, including obvious differences in voice, gender, mannerisms, and physicality. And there are also differences in how familiar each identity is with the others. Like some of my parts know each other and can talk to each other. Some have complete amnesia to each other, especially with the DID associated with ritualistic abuse. Their capacity was their experience. That was it. They could not share. There are also differences in how, people with dissociative identity disorder typically also have dissociative amnesia and often have dissociative fugue. So, kind of like the different types of trauma, how they all kind of culminate. If you have SRA, you probably have everything else. It's the same. You've probably experienced along the way to forming DID all of these other types of amnesia and dissociation. And again, dissociation is meant to be a protective factor. It's our brain getting in another space to handle something that it wasn't meant to handle. And then intentionally created dissociative identity disorder, and I'll just also put, not all of the parts created in ritualistic abuse are purposely created, but they live in that world and that world alone. They take on that job or that space. So naturally fragmenting during abuse due to the nervous system mental processes being overridden. What did I skip? I don't even know. Repeated and chronic abuse push past dissociation and depersonalization to defined structures and duties. And another note here is, I said it before, but usually there is amnesias and a wall between the day-to-day parts, the ones that go to school, the ones that have a relationship with friends, the ones that play piano, and ritualistically abused parts. They cannot really coexist. your brain, again, it's just been pushed past any normal limit of, and you know when you're past your limit, right? But you're going to like freeze or eat a ton of ice cream or maybe break something, but your mind is probably not what's going to break, because here you are, a healthy person who's overwhelmed. But if that were to happen day to day, today, 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 every day, something would crack, something would give out. And because this happened so young and the mind was very pliable and malleable, it created parts. And again, saves a life, but is hard to manage later.
You say what, under what age is it that?
I would, so this is my speculation, but I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure I've heard other people say it as well. Up to be about age 8 is the first 2 years are the most, like your brain's growing the most. It's the
Yeah.
most malleable. It up to about 9, past 16, it just isn't going to. It can still break. You can, people have can slip into other disorders and have nervous breakdowns and panic attacks. So those things are still going to happen, but there's just something about the brain, and while it's growing its neurons, the connections and the maps and identity and attachments in that space, that it can or cannot develop DID. At any age, you can dissociate. At any age, you can develop amnesia. This again is just that extreme edge. And this is where you get a lot of pushback. Like, is it really DID? It's like, in fact, someone told me I didn't have DID because it didn't look like anyone else's. My brain got put in a blender. I'm like, it fragmented. I have a picture of my window. It got broken in my van. We were hiking and someone broke in my car. It's on my head. I was having a flashback one day because I hadn't gotten it fixed yet. I think it was like the next day. And I'd hide, I'd go to my church parking lot to have flashbacks when I felt them coming, if I could get out. And I was laying on the seat and the glass was all over the floor. And I took a picture of it when I was done and I sent it to my friend and said, this is my brain. This is my DID. And how do you put that back together? You don't put it back together. You couldn't glue that back together and stick it in the car. There is a change that is permanent, but it doesn't mean we can't work with it. Have you all done kintsugi?
What is it?
Kintsugi? I'm just gonna Google kintsugi for you right now, because this is something you could do with the women in the home.
I wouldn't even know. I don't know if I've ever heard of it.
It'll blow your mind. It's the Japanese, whoops. Okay. Okay.
Well,
All right. So it's in Japan, rather than throwing away the pottery, they mend it with precious metals. So instead of sweeping it up and throwing it away, which is what I do because I don't own anything, of course, for one, they use platinum, they use gold, whatever they have that is, again, precious, and they mend it. And what ends up happening is it's now worth more than it was originally, because those cracks have certainly added character, but it's beautiful. There used to be a video, I can't find it anymore. Yeah, it was like Young Living or something. But so this is something I know you can do a DIY with this. This would be worth doing with the women in the home. Some version of this. And research kintsugi, talk about it, because it's incredibly important to know that just because something's broken, it doesn't mean it's worthless
Yeah.
or needs to be
Yeah.
thrown away.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of beauty here. You guys, I love that you get me. I love this. Okay, where's my
It's
thing
really
now?
cool.
It's beautiful. So again, that is something you guys, you can do. And when you understand, again, the background of it from Japan and the history of it is stunning as well. It's not just, oh, that's a cool thought. I love the history of it.
Mhm.
Um, where are we? So intentional fragmentation of a child's brain to control them. To claim power of them. So I gave you the story of they named her Eve. That's one example. There were many, many things like that. And they count on the secrecy and the amnesia between the two parts of myself, the
So
day
they
to day.
purposely try to create the DID wheel.
Sorry. Yeah, no, they do, and they count on it because those parts are they're controlled. Well, they're created through pain and suffering.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I know, again, not to interrupt, but it's conspiracy theory,
Oh.
but I've heard about it with you more, a celebrity possibly, like, back around the pandemic, there was a lot online about, like, how they need the child to suffer a certain amount of pain in order to, do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, adrenochrome. But in order to get the adrenochrome, it had to be at like the height of peak, scare, and that's what they're using to
Are you
So,
familiar with that?
I don't know those words, but I know that they know. So, you know when you're playing with a child and all of a sudden they don't look at you anymore. They're done. There's something similar when dissociation happens. Like they can spot it. They know. They know when you've switched. And because you've been tortured for so long, it's more than just dissociation. It's a split.
Literal, yeah.
And because again it's repeated over and over and over again, they know how to hold on to that. And then they train them, they control them. Some of them they give names. Most of my parts, if they would split and they weren't recognized, they did what they had to do, but they didn't want a name because they didn't want to be called out because they'd be abused. Poor Eve was abused over and over and over again because they knew her name. They named her. And so, but Eve split. Eve split because she was the primary part that they created, but she reached capacity and then she'd split. It's like picking up a piece of glass, dropping it, and picking up all of those pieces, dropping those, and breaking over and over and over again to where at some point there's dust. So that's kind of how the mind my mind is split and it split. So the reason someone didn't think I had it is I had so many fragmented parts that just had moments and well, you don't have like a family tree. I'm like, what the heck? Like this is a phenomena of the brain and you're telling me I have to fit in a box with something that has no box. It was he thought about it. He's like, you're right. I'm always right. Plus it's my brain. Don't tell me what my brain's doing.
I'm curious. You know all of your posts and when they're coming on.
I did know them at the beginning and I thought I needed to map them. I had no idea how deep it went. And again, I was like, it was so new. It was 1990 when I was diagnosed and started remembering. And then I started feeling like a fraud because I'd forget my parts and like, well, maybe I'm just making this up. But right now, if I have parts that come and they do, sometimes it'll feel like you know, when you're driving and this car gets a little too close to you, so you move just a little bit, they're not taking over, but like I'll feel influenced by parts. I'll know something's up, and then sometimes they do take over. They're driving. Um, if there is a part and I know, I will ask, is there something that you're concerned about that I can help you with? You know, if I have the presence to do that, if I catch it before they've taken over. I can guarantee if they're there, there's a concern. They're maybe sensing threat. Also, there are parts that were created to sabotage therapy, to kill. Like I was programmed to kill myself, like multiple times, multiple parts had the job to kill me. Of course, you don't know those things until you know. Um, there are parts. Orville was always saying, "I know what you did," which don't ever. I had one therapist do that. He was a mess, and I didn't know what he meant, but I would be beat, raped, whatever for whatever I had done. But what I didn't know was he was accessing parts of me that would, and he was getting information from parts or feeding them stuff. Who knows? And I didn't know I was multiple, but he did, and so he was
Wow.
manipulating me that way.
Wow.
And you know, there are parts that know rituals. There are parts that know how to dissect something, or know all of the neuroscience of something, and I don't have access to that information, and I don't know if I can get it, because a lot of times the parts, once I receive what they need to tell me, they go, like the angels come and get them again. That's how I see it. There's the control isn't just of me, but it is of the future. And if this happens, then you will be doing this. Or they ideally wanted to keep me in, so I would continue the abuse through the next generation, and thus the programming for suicide, take the secrets with me type of thing. Me doing this right here, I guarantee not on the plan. And I'm in a healthy space now where, like, I don't feel a threat at all, as far as I know I'm doing the right thing, but there are parts of me that are still scared. Like, we're doing this thing that we know we're not supposed to do. And so and I can talk to them. We're safe. Because we're doing this, there will be other people that are safe, and you're okay. I'm going to take care of you. But we're more in agreement now than we used to be. I've had parts just beat the hell out of me, cut me to shreds, because that was what they were supposed to do if I went off the path. And I know it sounds weird, but it's like freaking autocorrect. You can't type in a bad or a word without it autocorrecting, right? It's kind of like that. It just interjects. It's like, you're not supposed to be doing this. This is how it's supposed to be. And I don't know, that just came to me. That might be the worst example ever. But what can we relate to?
We had this girl in the house that presented me, and I think Jeremy, like, written front and back pages of at least 15 different personalities. Name, age, favorite color, favorite food, sexual orientation. Da, 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 da. Is that real? I mean,
It's real. I mean, I would not be able to do that in one setting. I have boxes of that, of who they are, their ages, what their experience is.
she would bring me a picture and say, so my 5-year-old do this for you. And I'm like, well, I never experienced that before, so I'm just, and I remember talking to Julie about this. She's like, you just believe her and you just move on.
And
So-
you can even say, what does it mean to you?
And
Yeah.
she played the piano, just like you mentioned, so that really clicked in my head, or because for me, she was like a late at night, and a lot of people are
And that's another thing for you who are in the home at night. If you've noticed, they're very often nocturnal. Because nighttime is scary.
Yeah, it really was.
Nighttime, I don't sleep. I still don't sleep. I'm up every hour. And now I have menopause and hot flashes. So
So-
it just gets better. But you know, like even in the psych ward, I'd be up walking all night and they're like, why aren't you asleep? I mean, I don't even sleep in my bed. I would sleep at the end of my bed. And this last week, no lie, I got under my sheets for the first time in years because it's scary. You know, my whole body doesn't feel safe, even though it's my space, I'm safe, but still in me, there's this. So yeah, they're very nocturnal. So sometimes you just have to be super patient and
That overnight, it's either gonna be the easiest shift or the hardest shift. I'm not sure which one.
like when I was on the psych unit and I'm up, sometimes the nurses would just say, "Hey, pull up a chair. Let's talk."
Oh, I was really.
It
Sometimes she
It's
just
so
needed
nice.
somebody that just like that mothering,
Yeah.
safe mothering effect. That,
Yeah.
And I just put my head here, Erica, and you just sit here, so I know that you're there. But that's when I really learned a lot, everything that you're saying. I've heard from a particular person in my research and
Yeah. I would say, you know, thank you for sharing. It means a lot to me that you trust me with this. Is there something else you'd like me to know about it? Sometimes it's just I need you to know, and then they're like, "What are you gonna do with that? Is that safe?" It's testing. Like, was that a good move, or was that a bad move? It's terrifying because anytime they were known, they were hurt. So if they're branching out and they're letting you see them, even if it's the name, that's a huge deal. So
I could tell by her clothes.
Oh, who she was.
Really?
I started noticing that too.
Is
Finally, I
that
looked
how
at her, I
you
said,
figured it
are
out?
you blah blah, and she just looked at me.
so
and
do I
smiled.
push okay?
It wasn't,
Yeah.
she was someone
No,
else.
yeah, you could tell. I could tell what she was wearing. She was.
Yeah, I have parts that like I like to wear dresses and I some of my favorite clothes and I'll put them on and they're like, get it off, get it off. It's like, okay, like
Yeah.
just talk to me. It's okay.
Mhm.
And I'm like, oh, that was my plan. Where was I? Back to this. Are we good? Like, okay. Abusers try to destroy any kind of life affirming connections based on caring, replacing them with connections based on torture. So automatically with so much abuse, attachments are damaged, you know, those formative, will my needs be met? Am I going to be hurt? Am I safe? Those are already destroyed in the beginning. And anyone that is kind, like Orville is really good at sabotaging. If someone was nice to me and he knew it, he would destroy. I had a bus driver when I was in kindergarten and she was very, very nice. And I was very, very nice, I think, to her. And she was moving or something. And I gave her a big hug as a 5-year-old do, you know, and she just gave me a little kiss on the forehead or something. Oh, thank you, you know. He saw it, that little lipstick, and beat me until I couldn't, because he was not gonna have that.
But
You
did you
know,
go back to school the next day and you were, they made
Oh.
sure that they were
I
well hidden?
I was a tomboy. They were able to excuse away a lot of my bruises. Plus, I am clumsy. I don't know if you've noticed, I'm clumsy. So, and it was the 70s, and no one
Yeah. a little
paid
bit
any
everything,
attention.
Yeah. I
And
think now it might be more noticeable or questionable.
and he was a cowboy, and we didn't talk about it. Like, still like if I see cowboy boots, if I hear them, like I can tell you cowboy boots are coming. Are all cowboys bad? No. But to me, I'm still not really able to differentiate that. I'm never comfortable in space where someone's in their full gear. I just can't. So, it's just the timing. I don't know. I went off track right there. So the intent is to control every moment of a being's life, including becoming perpetrators within the cult, protecting abusers' identities. That's a big one. Make sure you can't name who they are. Participate in rituals, and this is why they're creating. Remember content, language, process. Remember networks, procedures, lists of victims and perpetrators, locations, lock them into the iron minds the cult tried to develop within the mind of the child. And that's one of the frustrating things with when working with law enforcement is I can't. I am so directionally challenged. Like my group of guys that I ride with, they're flabbergasted that after all of this time, I cannot find my way. And at one point, I just said, Daryl, my brain is broken. I was intentionally, I can't. Like they intentionally messed me up, so I cannot find my way. So I couldn't lead someone to a site or remember names. Like, yes, I dissociate, but they scrambled my brain with remembering names. They just did intentionally. So it's frustrating for myself. It's frustrating for a lot of people. The structure, parts, and systems. I don't know what my notes have to do with anything right now. Oh, this is that picture of the birds that I was telling you about. Oh, I mean, it progresses. All parts and fragments hold memory. It's just not quite as much, and they might not have a name, but they hold a piece. Are a result of experiencing, navigating, and surviving the unimaginable. It's important to remember that. No one in the right mind would just go, hey, I want to be DID, because it's a tough road. If you notice this picture in the next 3 slides, this is what I did of little Eve. I had seen her, and I was telling the ladies yesterday, I'd seen her in my mind, and she was buried. She was just this black, like, I don't know. It was just black with the swarming, and it looked like crows just going around and around and around, and just this mass of wild, dark, ugly birds. And instinctively I wanted to get light to them, but I couldn't get it to them. And then I'm like, I'll raise them to the light. And so as I did, I'll show you, it's as it's getting lighter. So here you can see they're just wild. I don't know if you can see the birds in there, but they're there. You can't even tell they're birds, but they are, and they're wild, they're savage. And as the light started to hit them, they started to resemble themselves. It brought forth truth. So that's why I put that in here. But to the points on the page, total control and domination of will was the goal of the cult. The survivors' original programming of light, self, and soul resisted in the most remarkable ways. So instead of dying, if someone is before you and they're trying to heal, that light is winning, whatever it took to get there. I'm sure you've worked with enough where people have horrific stories of what we've had to do or what we've chosen to do, but it's a testament to your brilliance, to the resiliency in you. It's not a condemnation. It's you did what it took, and honoring that is so important. Their glorious spirits already won. It's our mission to help them remember. The mind's ability to fracture and restructure itself to survive and navigate the unimaginable is truly a miracle. The survivor may feel the cult is won, but the fact they are alive and here is evidence they have not. You know, I still feel like they still have me. Like I'm not free because I have, you know, remnants of trauma that still mess up my day, but they didn't win. My kids are not abused. I am alive. I'm doing good. But I do need voices to help me. Remember that. DID is hard to navigate. There may be potential conflict in knowing and embracing all of their parts in history. I have parts that have had to kill, who have had to abuse. And who wants to remember that when the very nature of me is love and healing? Yet I had to. And again, they did that on purpose for me to believe that I was evil, to keep me trapped. And so embracing the parts that did these things. I was talking to one of my parts and she was just feeling so dark and evil, and she had done these really horrific things. Everything I've talked about, I've mostly had to do. And I just said, the fact that you did that was to save my life. In and of itself, that is noble. So you are good. And it had an effect, you know. I felt her like kind of, yes, it was bad, but the second I had choice, I was out, you know. I stopped whatever I could. So yes, we're dealing with some really hard things, and it is hard to stomach. I have so many scars as punishment to myself, you know. But however, again, once I had the choice, I made a different choice. Supporting the survivor as they receive those details, it safely and compassionately is critically important. You know, just honor it. Like, thank you for saving her life. Thank you for doing something so hard that she couldn't do it. You know, it's real. It's true.
Question. Is there any language or words to avoid when referencing DID?
Can you give me an example? Like,
I know some people refer to parts as altars, or just different language to describe it, or when you're talking. And I know some people, I've heard a lot of different things about what's okay and what's not okay.
I don't know if there's an okay or not okay. Each person kind of has their own language and what they identify with. I don't like to use the word altar because I was abused on an altar.
Oh.
You know, and to me they're a part. They're a part of me. So it's really what they're used to and what they're comfortable with. So you can ask, how do you refer to your parts? You know, like, how would you like me to refer to your parts?
Yeah, like when I pray for, when you say prayer, or the blood of Christ, I use that all the time. So I have to think, to be aware of pleading the blood of Jesus.
Yeah.
You know, as healing over women. It's important.
And it's really okay to admit that you don't know something.
Yeah.
I feel like it's more important to say, I don't know, but will you help me figure this out? Let's figure this out. Because if you pretend to know something and you've developed trust and it tanks hard, it's okay to like a mom, like, I got this. I don't got this. But you know, somewhere you're gonna figure this out. That's okay. But I don't know how to work with DID that well. I only know how to describe it, and because I'm still figuring it out. And so I have to say that, like, if I pretended to be an expert, I would lead you all astray. It would not be good. But I mean, I can tell you what I know, which is definitely more than you knew an hour ago, right? So like, and there will be someone else that knows more. And again, partnering with someone rather than just being the guide or the boss. It's like, it's a journey together. And so asking them, like, tell me what would be helpful. And making choices, I don't like to make choices. It's hard. And, being multiple, it's hard to come to, a, you know, a, a conclusion of
Oh, I
anything.
know. My mom is multiple, so I know.
Oh, okay. So it's like usually don't ask me to pick a restaurant, but I can decide what to eat at the restaurant, because I don't know. Oh, it just some of those things are hard, but why was I saying that? Just the collaboration and the partnership and letting someone own as much of their journey as possible and, hurting yourself. Hey, you know what? I care about you. I I don't want you to hurt yourself. You matter. I know that you don't think you do, but you do. And most most of the time with the police officers or whatever, a person can hurt, they can harm themselves because it's their body. They'll only really intervene if it becomes life threatening. So unfortunately, there isn't a ton of backup. However, if someone is trauma informed, and again, I work with the CIT program, crisis intervention team, um, they can maybe interject, get it diffused sooner with the appropriate dialogue and, hey, I can see that you're anxious. Yeah, I'm just gonna sit here with you. I just want to talk to you for a few minutes, and not get
That's
in their space, not attack.
the crisis identified that could cut the police.
Oh, is that a mobile outreach team?
Oh, it's a mobile outreach team. The CI, what?
Crisis intervention
Yes.
training. Oh, that's a specialized training in police departments for
Okay.
mental health.
Okay.
So, our staff at the house, we created binders for each lady, and they have in there a de-stress safety plan and then a safety plan. So, like, I encourage everybody to review each resident and then kind of have an idea of those things to look for. So that way you can interject, or if you see them isolating, or if you see them acting a certain way.
And you sat with the women, they helped create their plan.
And how highly functioning are the women that you work with?
Very.
Okay, so they don't need inpatient.
Some do.
Okay.
We've had a couple past residents that I think we were not well equipped. The things that you're mentioning, I can kind of recognize that they really did have, or that they had some features, and we weren't fully equipped for that. But I think with some of the training that we're doing and what you're going on right now, I think we're going to be a little bit better in that area.
Yeah.
So, future residents, our current residents deal with more flashbacks.
Okay.
Than they do any DID, and one's still kind of learning about her history at the SRA. So,
Yeah.
We don't have so much of like the different in and out of their different parts, or behavioral issues and stuff like that. So,
Okay.
I think like maybe mental health for some, like Region 6, we've had one that needed to be stable, and then like we have another resident that wants to go to a substance abuse program because they feel like their addiction is more severe than what their trauma, like their addiction, it all went hand in hand, but they feel like they needed to get a better handle on their addiction.
Yeah.
So it's not, I think, I wouldn't say it's inpatient, that's like, we don't really get too many.
It's good to know your scope and what you can and cannot handle. So that is helpful because I think I am talking on that extreme end. Because like a safety plan, things like that, my parts that I'm hearing, they're like, "Mom, we wouldn't be doing a safety," like they'll sign one, but if they switch, they're gonna do whatever they decide. I do have some parts of me though
Hmm.
that spoke with a friend of mine that not promised, they asked him if he would feel okay if they got to a place where cutting was inevitable, if they reached out to him. Um, and that they would not cut without, because I'm spontaneous. So much happens just that fast for me. And he said he would be that person. And it has stopped my cutting multiple times,
Hmm.
which that's the only contract I've ever honored as far
Mm.
as consistently. And by I, it's the we, because
Mhm.
especially with the SRA, there's so much they just don't communicate and don't remember that someone signed a contract or
Yeah, I
Oh,
was
that
gonna
makes
say,
interesting.
there was a resident that like I brought to lasting help and it all seemed, which was like a psychiatric, and it like seemed really well, and then after she came back, she had noted how she's like, I didn't truly want to do that, but I think from like an emergency standpoint, was I think
She
as
did at the
staff
time. Mm-hmm.
what we needed, and like she did agree at that time, like we weren't taking her against her will, but I think that's a area where I could definitely see it's like it's hard because at the time it seemed as if she was game for that, but
well, and people need
the
help and
spontaneity I
they're
think
they're
makes
willing to
sense.
say yes even if
Mhm.
they know they can't. Like people go into treatment, yes, I will do these things that are required of me because I need help so bad, sometimes knowing there's not a chance, but they're like, I need it so bad, I will try, I'll do whatever I
Mm.
can. You know, that desperation and people pleasing, they don't want to lose someone, so they're
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
to tell you what you want to hear even though they're not sure. So yeah, I often talk on the way extreme end because there aren't very many people that talk about that. They don't work with them, they don't want to.
It's very confusing. It could be very confusing.
Mhm.
We had a resident leave this last weekend that I had just talked to the night before. And that she, and I kind of noticed some of the DID, especially when it
Sorry.
comes to like,
Oh,
I had given her like certain things probably 2 or 3 times, but she couldn't remember what they were, and she don't know if she filled it out, and so I was recognizing that a little bit, and then I noticed her one way at one point, and then like we talked, and it was a completely different person at the end of the conversation, and then from when she left Saturday, I didn't talk to her, but I talked to her yesterday, and she's just hysterical. She made the worst mistake, is what she feels.
Did you talk to her today?
I talked to her yesterday.
But not today.
She messaged me, but we were in here, so, but I told her after 3.
it's
Is that a possibility?
it is
She could come back.
Is that a possibility if she
She
wanted
didn't do
to?
anything wrong.
She did.
Yeah.
it's maddening to be on this end of it too and watch yourself doing and being in ways that aren't congruent with your core values or how I mean, I like being a rage and screaming like the crazy psychotic where like you just weren't able to do this thing and suddenly I've ruined every relationship I have. It's not proportional at all. And then in 2 hours, I know what the trigger was. I'm really sorry.
Mm.
And then at some point, people are like, I believe you, but this isn't going to work for me. It was really hard to navigate being so. We have like 18 minutes. Let me get through this really quick. I'm not
He
saying
needs to leave to go to the house though, by 3.
My class is at 3:30 with them. So
The volunteer has to leave at 3. It's like
oh,
20.
She has to leave, like she said, by 3:15 at least.
Oh, 3:15. Okay, so we have a little bit.
am I
more
the
time.
first one now?
Well, so you're on at 3? And you're on at 3:30?
For my class. So
Okay, yeah, if you feel like.
she's like, get me out of here.
Yeah.
I can't get out of here fast enough.
And when you get a chance, like if you want, when Serena comes in, you can call me. You can see me, but- Yes,
So-
Stacy, I'll come relieve you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
See you, Sophie.
So again, the creation of parts is to maintain secrecy. Can't name trauma or abusers. It creates a nearly impossible scenario for prosecution, like we talked about, with passage of time. It's such weird, bizarre stories. Unable to name locations and exact details. Often the survivor is unaware of the extreme nature of their abuse or that they have DID. I didn't know I did for a very long time. And so they're as surprised as you are. The more advanced and severe the trauma and DID is, the more extreme and nuanced. The more extreme the symptoms are, but they're also nuanced because they work together like this. But like the blow-ups or the cutting, for instance, very deep. Like I almost severed my artery in my leg because a part came. It was that fast. And so you're less likely to notice, unless you're with them all the time, the switching, because they've had to be so good at it to not get caught and to live in the world. There's
That makes sense when you say that.
With the math, even the different.
Yeah, and the different, and the people pleasing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Well, their only way to survive was to anticipate what you need. They're abusers, and the trauma bond. You guys are familiar with trauma bond, right?
Yeah.
That's a huge deal. The source of their pain was also the source of any relief that they have, and because pain is associated with so many chemicals and things happening in the brain, they're attached naturally. I mean, the movies where people fall in love on the run or whatever while they're being bombed, I'm like, that's the worst time in the world to have sex or whatever you're doing. You know, there's just something about that heightened emotion that bonds you for good or bad. And it's really hard. And when someone's their parent, or I should love them, or they should love me, and you're constantly wanting that acceptance and that place of belonging and hoping something will be different. And sometimes it is different. Sometimes they are nice, and when they are, you're like, we're okay, and then they're not. So you're familiar with that. It's a big deal. It's a big deal, and it's super, super heightened with this.
And I think as staff, we should be self-aware and careful when holding boundaries with residents and being, you know, like biased leaning towards one or the other, because the other residents can feel that.
They do.
And it breaks that
They will see the
relationship.
slightest
Yeah.
difference.
Yes, they will.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
yes.
yeah, I've noticed that.
We talked about that.
Yeah, we talked about just being consistent and
Yeah.
trying to tell the rest.
think they're not paying attention. I said they look at everything.
And-
Well,
I think
you guys are
living-
very instinctive.
I
You're
think
very good.
living in a house too, like whether it be with each other or with us, like we're so confined. So of course they're gonna pick up on the little things because that's all they see.
But I've
So
been
it's like
scapegoated a couple times from the beginning, you know, and I don't overshare, I do talk, we need to build a rapport, but I've been scapegoated a couple times, which is okay because like I'm learning.
Yeah, you guys have to communicate a lot.
Yeah.
You have to be
Yeah.
tight.
Clear set boundaries when it comes to allowing what they are sharing with you, because some of us are just part-time, you know, and like some of that stuff they could save it for case management or their therapist, because it can also in an odd sense kind of suck you into it. And then like you said, there's that bond. So I don't know where else.
Well, it's important to survival was based on being special and important,
Okay.
and maybe they were tormented a little less if they were special, or so everyone wants to be special, right?
Mhm.
But in this world, being in special and important is even more important, and they're going to
Right.
angle for it. And it's not, you can call it manipulation, you can call it borderline, I don't care, it's survival. Everyone wants to be important,
Right.
but because they are peers with their other housemates and you're not their peer, there is power, you hold a powerful position, and it has to be acknowledged. You're not their friend, maybe you are. And that being said, I became friends with almost everybody that I work with.
It's a
so-
fine line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a fine line.
And then I worked on the unit as a tech that I was on for 3 months. That really blew their minds. It's like, no, now you're my peer. Now you're my like, yes. But so you want to be friendly, you want to be kind, but do whatever you're doing, make sure it's uniform.
Right.
You don't want to just, I'm superior, but understanding there is a power. There is a power you hold, and they need what you have. So therefore there's a power difference. And so it's not bad to listen, it's not bad to laugh, it's not bad to just make sure it's uniform. So like you might observe this, like again, there's the good, there's the bad, there's all of it. I think with our time, we've talked about most of this. The younger parts are probably going to be a little more defined because they hadn't yet been overwhelmed by the many years of trauma. Fragmented parts hold moments rather than entire memory. And often one memory will have multiple parts because it's just too much for one. Or maybe there's one that holds the sexual abuse and one that holds the verbiage and confusion and chaos builds because of fluidity of parts. Like I'll doubt myself because it feels incongruent, but and again, amnesia between parts, layers and degrees of parts. Some are more defined than others. The passing of time is mostly unknown. So when someone presents as a 5-year-old, they are 5 in their minds. And you don't have to talk to them like a child to say, hey, I hear you, I see you. Is there something you need to tell me?
Open that line of communication.
Yeah, you're not placating by being gentle with them. It's go with your instinct. If you're a nurture.
What is that time voltage?
Time vaulted means there isn't passage of time. Like if a part of me comes forward with a memory, it is as if it happened today. It didn't, they are unaware that I'm 53 years old. They are unaware I have 11 children. They're unaware that they are empowered. And so it's fresh. It's real. It's right now. And you can say, hey, this is who I am. This is where you are. And they might be confused. I'm sure you've seen some of that, like, I don't know what you're talking about. Hear what they have to say if they need to share, but then also like orient them to now. You're safe. They can't get you. I can't count how many times my parts have said, is Orville dead? Is, am I, can they find me? And my therapist, nope, he's dead. I guess he died like 17 years ago. Who knows? I don't remember that. And these are things that they will possibly deal with. Omnipresent God, again, accessing parts and getting information. So you think they know because they were there and they weren't. They were talking to parts. Blackmail, threats, and coercion, tracking, which they can do now. Microchips. I was told that there was a chip in my heart and in my brain that they could find me wherever I was. in the 70s, that was highly unlikely.
Right.
Now, not
It's
so
not,
unlikely.
And it's hard to know whether or not they were lied to about it, whether it's, I mean, and that's the thing, how, when we have women that come and say, they said I was chipped.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
again, treat it as truth. Like, I believe you. Do you want to go see if we? Yeah, let's go see, because they can find it. If it's there, they'll take it out, and then they're embarrassed if it isn't, right?
Right.
And just say, you know what? I'm so glad. I am so
That we at
glad
least know you
that
were lied to.
security
or
you were
whatever.
lied
Peace of
to.
mind.
They were trying to control you, but
Mhm.
so instead of them feeling shame, it's like, I'm so grateful this is how it turned
How
out.
would they see a chip by an X-ray?
Mhm.
So they would X-ray their whole body if,
I don't know.
what I
They
mean?
probably have some
I
idea.
think
Like,
there's some kind of technology now actually that is like a scanner
yeah,
and scopes. Yeah.
yeah.
Who would do it? I mean, I'm just wondering, I wouldn't want
would it be,
her
an
to pay for it, like an MRI is expensive.
Talk-
They,
Talk to, what's his name?
oh, Chad.
Chad.
Yeah,
Talk
oh,
to
yeah.
Chad, because in the human trafficking world,
Yeah,
that's very common. They'll chip them. They'll do
Yeah.
barcodes. There are ways to track, and you can ask him, if this is a concern, how would we go about
yeah.
making
'Cause
sure
we
that
don't know.
they're
We
safe?
called the Humane Society one time to see if they could scan for.
Because one of the girls said, I think I have a chip, how would I know? And I'm like, that's a good question, let me
So
ask."
talk to
Uh-huh.
Chad, use him as a resource,
Yeah, I'll
because
see.
so
Yeah.
much of this
Also-
crosses over with human
all
trafficking.
the women that we have Medicaid or Medicare, so all their medical bills would be
Be okay.
essentially paid for.
Hopefully
So if they
they
had
can-
to have surgery
It
to
would-
get it removed,
Yeah, it
it'd
would
have to
just
take
be
place in
like
a
finding,
hospital.
yeah, I guess the right doctor that would.
Right.
That's the
thing.
like you could talk.
But that's something that you guys
to-
can partner
I know
with.
some
And
women
Chad, like,
that- some people at the OBGYN clinic that I work at, they do surgery. Like they're like surgical doctors and like
Mhm.
like I know
They might know some different.
I know a lady. I can give her
So I
number.
know
You
it
could
sounds
call her
whack.
and just be like ask her 20 questions just to
yeah,
talk.
open
Yeah.
that dialogue. Use him as a,
Yeah.
because this is his line, human
Mhm.
trafficking. He'll be able to have more answers.
Mhm.
But I think understanding that this is, again, back when I was growing up, highly unlikely, but
Right.
they,
Right.
I believed it because they did
Sure.
something to me. It hurt. And they, I believed I had a bomb in my heart.
Wow.
And so if I ever told anyone about it, the bomb would go off. So it wasn't just about even escaping. It's like, if you tell, you'll blow up. We will blow you up. And so, choosing to participate to survive, it's like, well, I chose that. It's like, thank you for saving her life. Let me help you,
Mhm.
get some relief now. So these are just things you might hear, some wacky stories, and I haven't even, are more than I could even stay here, but allow for the possibility that, just say, hey, I believe you. Would you like me to help you or find the right help for you? And then if it ends up not being true, again, that's embarrassing because they're so full of fear. They're so sure. It's like, you were lied to. That is good news.
Mhm. Mhm.
You're
Mhm.
safe.
And you're free
He
from
doesn't
having to
have
worry
that
about
control.
it.
He
Yeah.
doesn't have that power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it's tricky. And will you make mistakes? Yes. You'll do everything right and you're still going to be received wrong. Just do the best you can. Keep the dialogue going. We are like right at 3, so these are just more stuff. That's my self-portrait. The long-term effects, again, just remember DID, it saved their lives, and honoring it as a miracle, it allowed them to survive the unimaginable. Still, I have dissociation, running away, and I catch myself, there's healing, it's progressive, not as fast as I'd like, and unable to attach to people or your current life, still feeling like this isn't mine, or I don't know how to relate to you or this. They might be unaware that they're still being abused because of the dissociation between parts or the amnesia. Detachment from body, like I am not friends with my body. I'm trying to become friends, but it's hard to feel because that meant so much pain. But now I am not there, and so making friends with this body is a long journey. Attachment and relationship issues, loss of time. Let's see. Yeah, a lot of times I still don't know. Sometimes that I've switched. My kids will give me an account of something and I'm like, what? Yeah, you blah blah blah. I'm like, because I don't know. Like I didn't know I lost that time. I thought I was doing good. Dysregulated nervous system. Oh, I have attachment relationship issues there twice. That must be a big deal for me. The fight, here are those trauma responses: fight, flight, freeze, faint, please appease, collapse, submit, attach, cry for help. Some of these additional ones are from Nicobom, and I forget that it might be Ogden. I'm not sure. They're all a little bit different. I would research them, and if their nervous system is dysregulated and I say always back up. Say, hey, like I can tell, you're feeling a little anxious. Like, I'm just gonna sit here with you instead of pressing something because they're not gonna hear you or respond to you. I'll always back up. And if it's like we're never going to get anywhere, you might not, but you're at least not going to go further in to chaos.
I
Hopefully.
recognize that a lot with VA. She gets real fidgety.
Yeah.
She gets real super high anxiety.
Like elevated.
Yeah.
It's like,
It's like, hey, do you want to take a little walk?
Yeah.
Let's take a walk.
She likes to run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She likes to dog it.
And you see everything through a trauma lens. Flashbacks, the memories just emerge. They can come just intellectually where you hear it or see it, or they can come as relives. Where often for me, the relives, I don't know what it is. I'm being acted upon. If I can make the conscious choice to see it, then it integrates it all, and I can understand it and kind of relieve the part of it from that. Trauma response and alerts, fear-based, it's like that constant being vigilant and like threats everywhere. Eventually that can, once they've been in safety long enough, it can subside, but quickly reignites if it comes up again. Self-harm, risk-taking, re-traumatization. They're remarkable. Often they're very smart. Your brain has just gone into a different level that the ones that couldn't do that didn't make it. Creativity on another level. As you mentioned, a lot of them are artists and brilliant writers and yeah, the art, it's amazing however it comes out. There's amplified empathy, which can feel like a burden, but it makes me good at what I do, because I understand this. I can anticipate a trigger. I can help with a trauma response. Fiercely protective, but tenacious. Notice details others dismiss. Don't take precious things for granted. Expert problem solving skills. I am really good at a crisis. I have absolutely no life skills though. Like no. Oh, is that it? So many. I thought I had more. That's the end of our presentation. But it's so important to these things that are called disabilities, or you throw them in the DSM-5, if they can be looked at as a superpower. My therapist, he changed my life. He's such a butthead, but we do this, but that's the fun of it. But there was one day I was in therapy and I'm like, am I just oppositional? All of the diagnoses, am I just combative? Because whatever he was trying wasn't working. And he's like, no, you're not tenacious, you're spirited. I was like, what? He's like, you're spirited. You like to spar with me. He's like, if I can't defend it, I shouldn't teach it. So like bring it on basically. And I was like, oh, it was just the first time this little thing in me had been regarded in a positive light. And it changed the way I saw myself. So, you know, these things are here and how do we receive them? How do we mirror them back? And how we do that can literally change a life and their trajectory. Um, we're at 3.
I think encouragement is very important, and to point out accomplishments, whether they're something small or something big. Like, I do keep my and I make sure it goes with everything their accomplishments. I keep track of like what we set for the main goal the week before and when we're over. You know, how many did you do these? What was difficult? What was, you know, like what do you need to work on this week, or where do you see yourself at? You know, so these girls are remarkably changing.
Yeah.
And
And remember, you're partners with them. Like they know what they need. My friends that work with me, they've said that they've learned the most about working with trauma. They've by just asking me because I know. And if that doesn't work, I probably have like I'll morph it into something that does work for me. And we've been controlled our whole lives. We really need to be part of the healing journey, like determining what will work. And as long as it's in that healthy space, right? But yeah, partner, it's more of a partnership. And it is very empowering to know that someone's asking me rather than telling me.
giving back their voice and their voice.
Exactly. And they might be choices you don't agree with and you don't think are going to be helpful, but you know, that they're adults and like leaving the house. I don't know this person, but it sounded like that was not a choice you guys would think would be good for them. But they can. And so, and you just pray that they'll come back. Usually it takes about, the average is 10 tries at healing or 10 tries at anything before it sticks. It's a long time. But they don't have to be long waits, you know, if they're healthy. Safety is such a fleeting thing, and when you've had it and it's gone again, you don't trust it even more the next. So once they finally find the good fit, they're going to test it and hopefully it will stick and change.
Or even open up a little bit more and then realize, oh crap, this hurts too. And then not sure what to do with those emotions, you know, so it's like you gotta, it's like a roller coaster sometimes.
So are you guys familiar with Levi Lesko? So his book, Through the Eyes of a Lion, one of the things, and I didn't wear it today because it breaks so easily. One of his things is run to the roar. And he says, you know, lions are the only true pack animals. They work together, they live together. And the prey that they hunt are usually more quick, they're agile. But because the way the lions, Levi could do so much better. The way they position themselves is there's some behind and some in front. The ones behind roar and scare the prey. And because they're so fast, if they'd actually run toward the lions that are down in the grass, they could outrun them. But what they do is the lions scare them and they run to the lions that are lying in wait, ready to snag them. And so the point of that is run to the roar, go toward the thing that is scary and hard, you know, work through it. Your instinct is to run away from pain. We all have it. It burns, pull your hand off. but with the right support, going toward something and learning that you can do it.
In a safe environment.
Yeah, in a safe environment. And like, look, I've mastered that. I did great. Learning that you can will empower you the next time. And then you'll be like, why do I have to do this? This sucks. Why can't I just be? I do that all the time still. But once they start developing a track record of success, of successfully embracing, learning, growing, listening, hearing, they can do it again and again and again, and they strengthen. So, all right, are we good? Lost my thingy to turn this off. You guys feeling okay? I should have brought up my mindful moment thingy again. Just maybe my little